Aries Spears, what's good?
Joe, how you doing, man?
Welcome to VladTV.
Thank you, brother. First time.
First time. So how did you get into comedy originally?
Oh, man. As a little young lad, I kind of always knew I wanted to be in the limelight. I just didn't really know how I was going to go about it. So I was a big boxing fan growing up. So I tried to do the boxing thing, and then I figured out, you had to be in shape.
You had to work out.
and eat right. So then I tried to do rap, and that wasn't it either.
Oh, you were a rapper at one point?
Well, yeah. I mean, this was, man.
What was your rap name?
I didn't really have one. I just knew from seeing House Party with Kid and Play. I knew me and my neighbor, who I'm best friends with to this day. That two-step is what made us want to do rap.
Really? Like the kick together?
Yeah. But I'm a rapper in my free time. I respect the art too much to call myself a rapper. So to answer your question, I always grew up watching comedy. My father's era was Richard Pryor. Mm-hmm. So of course I'd seen everything on Richard and even Red Fox and some of the older people in comedy like Stepin Fetchit and Mantan Moreland and Moms Maybe. But Eddie was the guy that really had the biggest impact on me growing up in the 80s on SNL. So I had always kind of been a cut up in school and making people laugh and kind of just, been a TV kind of raised me. So, cause I was so infatuated with television and could mimic and do impressions. It just kind of felt like that's the path destiny chose for me.
Okay. So what was like the first time you actually got in front of an audience and did your thing?
I had went down, me, my mother, my sister went down to the Improv in New York. And back then, to try to get on stage, you had to put your name in a hat, and they would pull it out of a hat. So all three of us put my name in, and neither one of us got it. So I was a little discouraged that day. But then someone kind of pulled me to the side and said, there's the Uptown Comedy Club in Harlem. Uptown Comedy Cafe is what it was called. Mm-hmm. So jump on the train, go up there, maybe get your feet wet. So I went up there. I did 2 minutes of impressions, and got bit by the bug, man. Yeah. It was kind of successful for me, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do, and been riding the wave ever since.
What were the impressions that you did back then?
Man, I think I did like James Brown, Jack Nicholson, doing a Pepsi commercial. Really raw stuff, man. Just really stuff that I had practiced in front of the mirror at the crib.
Okay, so did you actually do well, or?
Yeah, I did, because if I had not done well, that could have been a big deterrent for me. But I did do well, and it was great too, because most people would pander to a kid, but I never took that cookie cutter approach to trying to do stand up. Oh, I'm a kid, look at me, I say cute things. I was raised off of Richard and Eddie, so I wanted to try to be as raw as I could, as early as I could, and my parents influenced that, especially my mother. So from about 14 till now, man, I've always just been straight 80 proof hard liquor, no chaser.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the best kind of comedy too.
Like, what do you think was your first big break in comedy?
Probably Def Comedy Jam. I did that when I was 16 with Martin. I didn't get on the first year they started because the guy who actually was responsible for Def Comedy Jam, Bob Sumner. A lot of people give Russell the credit because his name is on it, but it was really Bob Sumner, a brother out of East Orange, New Jersey, who knew the likes of me, Bill Bellamy, Hamburger Jones, Derek Fox, and we all came up in that tri-state area doing stand-up. So he was the brainchild behind it. And I did Def Comedy Jam the second year with Martin because they felt I wasn't ready for the first. But I did it the second year. So that was kind of my first big TV debut break.
So I interviewed Russell recently. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we kind of discussed was after Def Comedy Jam, you kind of had this, vacuum where like black comedians, stopped getting put on. He basically said how when Def Comedy was up and running, there'd basically be a whole bunch of executives like sitting there on the sidelines saying, okay, great, you get this movie role, we're gonna do this special with you, boom, boom, boom. But then after, Def Comedy Jam stopped, and it had a long run, it was like 10 years or something like that, like some crazy long run for HBO. There was, sort of like a an era when you didn't have that anymore. Do you feel that that's true?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when the obviously the greatest thing about Def Jam was it allowed white America to not just see one funny Negro a decade, because, it seemed like Red Fox owned most of the 60s, then Pryor had the 70s, then 80 had the 80s, and then by the 90s, it was kind of belonging to Chris Rock, but then you had the explosion of Def Jam, which introduced you to Steve Harvey, Cedric, Chris Tucker, Bill Bellamy, Bernie Mac. So you got a chance, white people got a chance to see comedy existed just beyond one black dude a decade. And there were so many of us that was funny. And like anything else, when the public has been denied something for so long, it becomes an overdose. And then once you've had your fill, now it's okay. Now we have to scale it back. Because at one point, when Def Jam was so hot, every promoter that would do a concert either had the word Def or Jam in it. Whenever they would promote a comedy show, they'd go, this week, the Comedy Jam. They would never use both at the same time because that would almost be copyright rights. But they'd go either, the Def Funny Explosion or the Comedy Jam because it was that hot. But everything comes, full circle. So we'll probably see it again.
Right. I mean, I think Dave Chappelle came out of that too, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, Dave's always kind of been an oddball in that sense. Because, Dave has always had a white following, but I don't think black people really latched on Dave until the Chappelle Show.
Really?
Even though he did Def Comedy Jam, black people was like guys like Eddie Griffin, Bill Bellamy, Steve Harvey, Cedric, and especially with the explosion of Comic View, which was kind of a little after that.
Right.
But those guys have always stayed in the bloodstream of the black community, so to speak. Dave Chappelle, black people knew him, but they didn't know him. And they really didn't know him until the Chappelle Show. Dave's following has always been predominantly white until the explosion of the Chappelle Show, which then captured everybody.
That's interesting. I've never really heard it like that before.
Oh yeah. I mean,
because I was following Dave Chappelle well before.
What color are you?
I'm white.
There you go. But when you stop and think about it, Dave hadn't really ever done anything to really reach the black community like that. You think about his movies. I think one was Sleepless in Seattle, Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Right.
A lot of those mainstream crossover movies, I don't think had a huge black audience. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, brothers don't go.
What about, was it Half Baked?
Half Baked was like a cult hit. So unless you were into weed, and it was a cult hit. It still wasn't a major black vehicle like In Living Color or some urban movies that come out. Like, Chris Rock got introduced to the black community from New Jack City. More people knew him from that than Saturday Night Live.
Boomerang.
Boomerang. Yeah. But those were black vehicles.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Dave's career, if you look at the track of his career, he's really done mainstream crossover work. He's never really done an all-black movie for us to know him like that.
Yeah, you're right, because Half Baked wasn't a black movie. It was really like
and again, it was a cult hit. It wasn't even a huge hit. It was a cult hit.
Now, I feel you. I've interviewed Cat Williams before,
right?
And he said that
Dave Chappelle still lives and breathes.
Okay.
And, the fact that the industry blacklisted him for the last 7 years does not take away from the fact that he still walks the earth. So I stand in deference to him, but I am the king of all of the rest of comedy. Let's make no mistake.
He is, yeah.
And I think Kevin Hart, I interviewed him, he agreed with me.
I would definitely agree. Chris Rock and myself were at a comedy club, and we both watched Dave Chappelle, and at the same time we looked at each other and questioned, why aren't we that funny? Dave Chappelle is a different type of animal, man. His comedic talent and timing is like no other, and I gotta honestly say, I can't disagree in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about comedy is it is subjective. Mm-hmm. So what works for one person might not work for another. Hands down, I think Dave is his like, there are guys in this game that I think are hilarious. And when I look at their material and their writing and their stand-up, I go, funny. I get it. But they don't necessarily make me laugh. You know what I mean? It's almost like if you're a boxing fan and you looking at a fight on TV and you look and you see sitting ringside is Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya, and they're all attending a Shane Mosley fight. Game respects game. Game recognizes game. Yeah. So I could look at a comic and go, brilliant, man, hilarious, but they don't make me laugh. I get it though, but Dave makes me laugh, man. He just makes me laugh.
Dave Chappelle, I'm gonna say, is my favorite comedian of all time. I actually personally like Dave Chappelle better than Eddie Murphy. Now that's not to say that Eddie Murphy
subjective.
It's subjective. Like now, for example, Raw and Delirious, I feel, are the two most important stand-up comedy films of all time.
Right.
You know, I don't remember anything that's made the impact. I mean, I remember as a kid, you'd quote half the fucking stand-up. You know what I mean? You know, like, you know, but for me, the way Dave approaches it, kind of sort of sideways from different angles.
Yeah, he's just smart, man. Like, you know, I tell people, like, look, if I have my Mount Rushmore comedy, first of all, I wouldn't even include Eddie and Richard, because they're gods. They're like the Mount Olympus.
The Mount Olympus.
So I don't even count them. It's automatic. But I've always said Dave Chappelle, the late great Patrice O'Neal, definitely, Bill Burr, and then it's a tie between Corey Holcomb and Tommy Davidson.
Bill Burr, huh?
Yeah, man. Bill's sharp, man. Sharp.
Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And the other ones are who? Tommy Davidson?
Tommy Davidson is an animal.
I've seen him do stand-up.
Tommy's an animal on stage, man. He's like a lion with no chain on. He's just loose. And then Corey Holcomb and Patrice O'Neal.
So you wouldn't put Eddie Griffin in that list? Nah?
That's just my top 4, man.
You wouldn't put Cat Williams in that list? Nah? Kevin Hart?
Funny dudes. Funny dudes. But they for me, those guys, Patrice, Bill, Dave, and Corey, and Tommy.
Martin? You want to put Martin in that list?
You know, I enjoy watching Martin in movies. I think in movies, Martin has some of the funniest reactions and delivery and timing. Stand-up wise, I'm not a big fan of Martin.
Well, you've said before, you've called the Martin Show buffoonery.
Well, I look at it, and it just, some of it was just too over the top.
Right. Well, there was a tweet that said, "Don't get me wrong, I love Martin, but at times his show teetered on buffoonery."
Yeah. I mean, like, it just, the episode where they're on vacation and they're fighting the raccoon, the stuffed animal raccoon. Come on, man. When he does his mother and he's doing backflips and biting wood off furniture, you know. Again, man, my subjective. That's how, that's how I see it.
I mean, there's a lot of physical humor.
Right.
In Martin. I was never a huge Martin fan.
Right.
A lot of people around me were.
Right.
Like I wasn't watching every episode.
Right.
But
when I watch, like, for instance, on his show, when he would always play multiple characters, you can't help but compare that to Eddie Murphy. And there's a subtlety in Eddie when he's playing different characters, as well as an aggression. But it's literally like he morphs into this person where you could go, I don't see Eddie. Yeah, I believe this is a character on its own, with its own energy and its own life. Martin, to me, in his characters, it just always felt like Martin.
Yeah, you always know it's Martin.
Right.
When he's doing Romy Rome, that's Martin.
Right. It's just Eddie got lost in who this person was. And I thought Eddie was a master at that.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch Coming to America,
right,
and some of the characters.
Oh my, the Jewish dude.
That's beautiful. What is that, velvet?
What is it, velvet? The barber,
right?
The clumps, the grandmother. I mean, Eddie just, it's a complete transformation, man.
I actually interviewed John Amos.
Right. That's an intimidating dude. I bumped into him at a car wash. Even at his age now, you get the feeling he could whoop your ass.
Oh yeah. Well,
Back then, at Good Times, woo.
Well, you know that they're actually starting a Kickstarter to bring back Good Times with the original cast.
I heard that in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard
They're
that.
trying to raise $1 million.
I don't know if I want to see an hour and a half of that kind of depression.
Well, someone pointed something out to me recently.
Right.
Okay, so, Thelma died, right, in real life.
Show?
No, in real life. No, sorry, not Thelma.
The mom.
The mom.
Oh.
Sorry, no, Thelma's
don't
still
say
alive.
that.
No, Thelma's still alive.
I was like, when did that happen?
She was on.
I know Black News.
Right. No, Thelma's on Black Jesus, right?
Is she? I just know she didn't. I didn't hear she died, but the mother, yes.
The mother died in real life.
And the father died on the show.
On the show, so
how does that work? Was the father gonna come back and go, damn? Right.
That's come out tricky. The grave. Like
that's tricky.
I'm not quite sure how he's gonna pull that off. But when I was talking to John Amos, and he was in Coming to America, he was saying how
we were taking a break, and we were on lunch break, I believe. So I was standing outside just relaxing, and some guy comes walking up to me, and he's wearing sweats with a hoodie. I didn't pay him much attention. I didn't know if he was with crew or just a tourist. And he starts engaging me in conversation. He said, "Hey, what's your name?" I said, "John." He said, "John what?" So I told him my last name. And he said, "I never heard of you." And I can see that the guy's becoming increasingly more confrontational. And then he says, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm working on a movie." "What movie?" And I told him, "Coming to America with Eddie Murphy." He said, "Well, I heard of Eddie Murphy. I never heard of you. You sure you're in the movies?" So now the guy's really starting to get under my skin. And he said, "Are you funny? Are you a comedian?" I said, "Hey, man, why don't you leave me alone? I'm on my lunch hour. I'm trying to take a break." I turned around, and the guy starts laughing. It's Eddie, but he was in between costumes with the prosthetics. He starts laughing. He's got this laugh that you have to hear it. You can't imitate. He sounds like a mule indeed. Right? And so I said, "Eddie," he said, "Hey, Amos, I got you." And sure enough, he had nailed me because I had no idea who he was. I'm getting ready to punch the guy in his eye for getting so confrontational with me. Turns out it's Eddie Murphy in between characters.
Oh, it was Eddie in character?
It was Eddie in disguise.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying, man.
Fucking with his coworker.
Exactly.
And John didn't even know that was Eddie Murphy.
It's scary. It's scary good, man.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Eddie's absolutely amazing. You watched the interview I did with Eddie Griffin about Bill Cosby.
I saw a little bit of it, yeah.
What was your take on that?
Again, I go back to the congregation reference. Even comics are fan of comics. And based on everything that Bill Cosby has done for Black America and Black entertainers, if it wasn't for the Cosby Show, I don't think we could have the Obamas. So Bill opened the door, man. He kicked it open. So I think comics feel a certain sense of loyalty towards him. But I always say, man, all these Black entertainers accused of doing dirt, they all can't be innocent. Acts of evil and wrong come in all shapes, just like idiots. Black people could be idiots, white people could be idiots, Hispanic, Asian. So you mean to tell me there can't be no famous sex offenders? There can't be no famous rapists? There can't be no famous killers? Of course there can, and there have been. The only difference is entertainers and people with power and money are in position to get away with it a lot better than ordinary folk. So
pay people off.
Right, it pay people off, hire better attorneys. Money is power. And do I believe Cosby did it? Look, for the first 84 women, I didn't want to, but when it got to 92, I said, man, something up.
I mean, you do know that Bill Cosby does not approve of the type of comedy that you do.
Sure.
He's spoken out, you know, not you in particular.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But he spoke out against Eddie Murphy, and
right.
He didn't like Black comedians swearing and doing dirty.
That karma is something else, isn't it? It seemed like at some point it'll come back and bite you in the ass. Bill Maher, who's not a fan of, I don't know if he's a fan of, well, he can't be, because I'm a big fan of Bill Maher in Real Time on HBO, so I watch the show religiously. And he always slams Bill every chance he gets. And he had the best line. He was like, for so many years, Bill had been hitting the black community about what they should and shouldn't be doing. Now these black kids are telling them, hey man, pull your pants up.
Right.
So irony and karma is a motherfucker, man. You know, do I believe Michael Jackson did it? You don't want to, but to me, something don't smell right. Do I believe OJ did it? Absolutely. That's what I'm saying, man. It's like, I know, you know, black people, we want to protect our own because we've gotten railroaded so much in throughout American history by the judicial system. Yeah. But goddamn, they can't all be innocent.
Right. And I remember the OJ, when the OJ verdict was read.
Right.
And, you know, I think my best friend at the time was black. And he was celebrating, and I'm like, why are you celebrating? Do you really think he didn't do it? He goes, no, I know he did it. Right. But black people have been fucked over by the police so many times. It's nice to see it go the other way just one time.
Yeah. You know, again, I one thing about this country and one thing I've noticed about white people, you guys don't take losing well. We have been getting screwed over by the justice system since the beginning of time, since we were in chains. And the one time we win, y'all, everything changed. I live in a white neighborhood with white neighbors. And I remember the day after the verdict, I went to go get my morning paper and saw my neighbor. I said, good morning, Tom. He said, is it? Is it? So,
is it a good morning?
Right. And when y'all lose, man, y'all rewrite the script. So it's you know, I'm joking about it on stage now. I just wish black people and white people would just see race so differently. Like we really, really do. And whenever I get on social media, on Twitter, and I engage with people, I hear white people say the same things over and over, which tells me we're not on the same page. Things like the cops killing black people. It's not racial, it's economical. It's poor versus those who have money. So I'm thinking all these black people that have been killed by cops, it's a shame these niggas was broke. Because if they had money, they wouldn't have been killed. That's ridiculous. You know, we've been told by you guys so many times to get over it. Oh my God, slavery, the 60s, civil rights, it was so long. Why can't you guys just get over it? And again, I go, well, the thing you keep telling us to get over is still slapping us in the face. Subtle but not so subtle racism that we face every day. You know, I've been doing stand-up for 26 years without fail. I've been to every major and small city within the United States. And every time I get done doing a show, I go hang out at local bars and nightclubs and run into the dress code list. Here's what's on the list. No baggy jeans, no sagging jeans, no Air Force One sneakers, no Timberland boots, no extra large white t-shirts, no excessive jewelry, no gold and platinum jewelry, no gold and platinum iced out grills, and no do-rags and fur coats. Now that's all the shit niggas wear. The only thing missing from that list is no niggas. Now, while you don't want niggas in your club, you got white people in those clubs dancing and partying to hip hop and rap music and reciting the word nigga in a song where it's being said every 6 seconds. And they looking at me while saying it. What up, nigga? Nigga, 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 nigga. Meanwhile, all the real niggas is outside and can't get in because they niggas. So, you know what I'm saying?
How do you take that? Because that's an interesting point. Like, for example, I never use the N-word.
Right.
If it comes
As you shouldn't.
Right. And if it comes up in a song that I'm quoting, I will just skip.
Listen, if you're in the privacy of your own home or you're in your car with the windows up and the word come on, say it. It's very liberating. Just make sure when you say it, you look straight ahead. You don't want to be like, yeah, my nigga, and there's a black dude next to you looking over at you and he can see you. So just say it, but you know.
Okay. So what is your take when a white person is, you know, quoting a Lil Wayne song and they use the N-word?
As long as they don't use it around me. And
around you.
They can't.
They can't?
They can't.
Because
there's going to be a problem.
Some violence
and
will happen?
And it bothers me when there are black dudes out there that have white friends that allow them to do that. Like I often see black dudes that date white women, especially white women that act black, because they think they niggas anyway. Mm-hmm. They'll use the word nigga in front of their man in reference to him. And I want to grab this motherfucker and go, nigga, what is wrong with you? Are you serious? You should never be that comfortable to allow a white person, your woman or not, to call you a nigga.
Well, I think what happens with white people who use that word is that it becomes accepted around their black friends.
And that's the problem.
And then they assume because their black friend is okay with it, that they could turn around and use it around other people. Like, for example, there was some years back, there was a girl named V Nasty. I don't know if you remember this. She was a white rapper. Well, she was part of this group called White Girl Mob with this girl Creation,
Right.
who had the song
Creation.
Creation. She had a song that was kind of like a viral hit. She got a deal. She ended up getting dropped. Her album flopped. But this girl V Nasty, who was using the N-word freely in her raps, in her interviews, et cetera, I actually interviewed her, and she grew up in East Oakland. Has 2 biracial kids.
Right.
And what she told me, which was actually kind of interesting, she said,
all they say is she shouldn't be saying the N-word. She white. She ain't from the hood. She ain't raised like this. This is a culture. This is voodoo. This. Like, come on, but y'all don't know me. Like, this is where I was raised. This is how I was raised. It's not. I didn't even know it was a problem somewhere else because I've never been nowhere else. So I'm supposed to know how y'all feel about me.
you've never really traveled before.
Hell no, like, nah.
Huh, okay.
Nah, I didn't travel before I started rapping.
Wow, and she found out, didn't she?
She found out.
Where is she now?
She found out.
White people often ask the question and don't understand why they can't use it. How come you guys can say it? That's another one. How come you guys can say it, but we can't? Because there's too much, in terms of the history of that word, there's too much blood on that word when y'all say it. Mm-hmm. When black people say it, there's kind of some blood on it too, because with all the black on black crime, before a nigga kill another nigga, he usually calls him a nigga. Fuck you, nigga. Bam. But historically, between the 60s, lynchings, slavery, whippings, police brutality, water hoses, German shepherds, bricks, sticks. I mean, it's just too much historically. There's too much blood on that word coming out of y'all's mouth for us to be able to let you get a pass on that. So in a nutshell, that's why you can't say it. And to the white community, stop telling black people what we should be worried about. Because that's another one. You guys go, well, instead of being worried about police brutality, you guys should be worried about black on black crime. More black people die at the hands of each other than the police.
Right.
Okay, well, first of all, it's not y'all's place to tell us what we should be worried about. Okay? Black on black crime is a very serious issue, but that is an internal issue. That is a locker room issue.
Right. Well,
that is a family issue. Don't worry about what's going on in our locker room. That's up to us to handle.
Well, I just want to say also that when you do have black on black crime, the person doing the crime usually gets caught and goes to prison.
Well, not only that, number 2, I have no say or control over what some ignorant nigga decides to do in the streets. If some ignorant, dumb motherfucking nigga decides I'm gonna kill another black man, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I got no control over that. I got no say over that. But I should have some say and control over what my police department does. Because the last time I checked, my tax dollars pay them to protect and serve us, not abuse and kill us.
Right. Well, I think there'd be less, this goes back to the point I just made. I think there'd be less of an outrage if all the cops who were killing black people were getting sentenced to life in prison. Absolutely. Or the death penalty or all the stuff that the black on black crime perpetrators are doing.
Right. And look, let's hold that fire to both feet. Yeah. If I'm supposed to be responsible for what another black man does in the streets, then how come the good cops can't be responsible for what the bad cops do? I don't care how much people scream, not all cops are bad. And that's true. Not all cops are bad. But if you're a good cop and you know the bad ones, and that's a brotherhood. Being a police officer is a brotherhood. Yep. They know who they are. If you're a good cop and you don't tell on the bad cops, you're just as responsible.
I agree.
White America, I will take all your responses on my Twitter at Aries Spears.
What happened between you and Kevin Hart?
There's nothing that really happened, man. I gave my opinion on something in regards to comedy. And, like anything else, people like to take it and run with it, or people like to label you a hater and bitter and jealous. And it really ain't like that. I mean, I thought we live in a place where you could say how you feel without consequences and repercussions. Right. And I was just giving my honest opinion on something.
So what exactly happened? Because Kevin Hart was on Sway.
Right.
And I guess he said some things about Mike Epps?
Yeah, and then Mike Epps, I think, alluded to the fact that he said something about Kevin being overrated. And I never called Kevin overrated. Matter of fact, I've always said, first and foremost, Kevin is one of the most talented dudes in this game. Funny. And again, from what I've seen him do in movies, he knows how to work the camera. I was mainly talking about stand-up and the fact that I felt like if you had writers, and your mantra is everybody wants to be famous, but everybody don't want to work as hard as me. You know, kind of like with Floyd Mayweather's, hard work, and his crew yells out dedication. So my thing is, if people are helping you write your material, which defines your greatness as a stand-up, shouldn't there be an asterisk near your name? Because it's almost like taking steroids. If somebody's going, in order for you to perform at this level and do this thing, take this pill, take this shot, and now you're able to do that. Is it your greatness? Or does the pill and the shot help a little bit?
So it's kind of like Drake having a ghostwriter?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Nas is one of the most brilliant, and I said this on Sway, one of my favorite, most brilliant lyricists ever, him and Jay-Z. If I found out that somebody wrote their lyrics, it'll take a little bit of the shine off. Because I'm sitting there listening to it going, they wrote that. Yo, rewind that. Oh my God, the metaphor. Oh, the punchline. Then you didn't come up with that?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So Kevin has writers, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Did Eddie Murphy ever have writers?
I don't know. I don't know for stand-up if he ever had writers.
Wasn't Paul Mooney writing for Richard Pryor?
Yes. Rich is one of the greatest. Does that diminish Richard? I mean, if you're going from what I'm saying theoretically?
Based on what you're saying.
Theoretically, you would say yes. But trying to call Richard anything other than great or get anybody to believe he's anything other than great, and I'm not saying he isn't great, but it's like fighting against God, man.
And he's dead, and it's always
the dead part has nothing to do with it.
Nah, here's the thing: when someone dies, it's almost like they're, when you criticize them, people take it a certain type of way. Once a person dies, they almost get put in a different category.
No, listen, Chris Rock said it best. Sometimes when we go to comedy clubs, before the show starts, they'll have the projector screen down and they'll show famous quotes from comics, and so-and-so said this. And Chris Rock, in a nutshell, said something to the extent of, comedians are like pastors, and we have our fans are our congregation.
Okay.
And when you're a pastor and you got that congregation, they will ride with you till the end. It don't matter what you've done, how heinous, how bad. Carlos Mencia had Joe Rogan on stage with him saying, you steal material. And one of Carlos's fans yells out, yeah, but he does it better. That's his congregation. They are loyal, man. R. Kelly was seen on tape eating booty out of child.
Right.
And his concerts still sell out.
And peeing on it.
Peeing. And the faithful with kids still at the concerts. We love you. So that's what I'm saying. It's like when you are a pastor with a congregation, sometimes it don't matter how valid my point could be. It don't matter how right I am.
Well,
people ride with you to the end.
They released a reference track of a song that Drake performed and nobody cared.
That's what I'm saying.
Because all the Drake fans said,
that's what I'm saying.
We don't care about that shit.
To the hardcore comedy enthusiasts, to the hardcore comedians themselves, we give a shit about that. But to the masses, they don't care. Look, Amy Schumer, there's a thing on YouTube where they do a breakdown between her and like 6-7 comics where they're saying she stole material.
Okay.
Now, one comic, maybe. And if it's verbatim, that's even a big question mark. But 6? I mean, literally verbatim with slight twists.
Okay.
No one cares. She's at the top of her game. She's hot. And I saw Trainwreck. There must have been 8-9 comics in that movie. So if she has the ability to go, my next movie, you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
What, you about to bite the hand that's gonna feed you?
Okay.
They don't care. It's a job. It's an opportunity. It's a chance to take their career to another level. And again, if the fans love you, her congregation, they don't care.
Right. I mean, for example, let's just say I go and watch one of your routines.
Right.
And then I go and perform them better than you. at the end of the day, you're gonna be mad, but if I do a better job with your material, is there even any copyright involved in that or whatever else? You can't really copyright talking.
No.
You know, see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, can you really get mad at someone who does a better job than you?
Well, you can get mad at them because they still stole your shit.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what can you really do about it?
Can't do nothing about it.
And you know, often I say this, sometimes even fans, you know, I've had people show up at my show, and I remember I was in someplace in Boston, and this white dude, I heard him after the show. I'm in the lobby selling my merchandise, and I heard him talking to his man. Yeah, and he stole this from Patrice O'Neal. And I said, my man, what did I take? Give me an example. And what happens sometimes is, just because you saw someone do it first, don't mean they did it first. You just saw them do it first. If you sit at home watching TV and you see a comic on TV do a bit, and then 2 weeks later, you're in a comedy club and you hear another comic do that bit, your first inclination is to go, oh, he stole that from the guy I saw on TV. Well, no, just because you saw the guy do it first, don't mean he did it first. Don't mean he the author. So he might have stole that and got it on TV and put it out there first, so now it looks like he wrote it.
Okay, so you're saying that in that particular case, Patrice took some stuff from you?
No, not at all. Patrice does a thing on his special Elephant in the Room where he messes with this guy about having a white girlfriend, and he does some stuff about interracial romance. Hand to God, before Patrice's special was even made, I've been doing jokes about black dudes with white women and interracial couples for I don't know how long, before Patrice's special even was created. Okay. So when I saw it, I went, okay, now some people might think that. But again, if you look at his bit and you look at my bit, same premise, totally different avenues of execution. Totally different. And what you will run across is great minds think alike. There's only so much that's been talked about and that you can talk about. So certain things are going to hit on the same level to some degree. It's why when I go on the road, I don't really like working with black comics. You know, if I don't bring my own black feature, I prefer my show to be white, because just by the nature of the beast, if I got a black dude on my show, black people, we live in a world where we face racism. We live in America. So racism is one of the things that we have to talk about as our life experience. Mm-hmm. So if I'm on stage and I'm doing 20 minutes about black, white, and the guy before me does 20 minutes on black, white, now that's 40 minutes of black, white. And I don't care how liberal or open white folks are, it's only so much of a beating anyone can take. There have been times when it's just me talking about race, and I've had white dudes get up in my show, yell at me, get into a screaming match with me, try and curse me out because they can't handle it. So I don't need 40 minutes of white folks beating them over the head with something I'm gonna beat you over the head with for 20 minutes.
So you had white people at your show just basically lose it and say fuck this shit?
Oh yeah, white people, while you guys can take a beating, there's only so much you can tolerate. You guys usually are good at handling it, but every now and then, you know, that white privilege and that white arrogance comes through.
So give me an example of like, you know, a white person that just got tired of hearing your shit on stage at one point.
I was at the Comedy Zone in Jacksonville, Florida, and I probably had done my race humor for a good 25 minutes. So then I noticed this one white chick off to the side who didn't seem to really be enjoying the show. So I was trying to pick with her a little bit, and I think I asked her maybe 3 times what her name was because she refused to tell me. So about the 3rd time, I said, sweetie, what is your name? And this white guy in the back yells, don't worry about her name is. Why don't you stop picking on all the white people? So, you know, but I think what set him off was the Barack Obama material, which that's happened to me several times before where, you know, white folks don't like to hear the truth, man. Some white folks don't like to hear the truth.
What's the Barack Obama material?
No, just stating the fact that there's a lot of white Americans out here that while they voted for him and are happy with the fact that we got a black president, there's a lot that aren't. So when you call people on, you know, when you pull people's card and tell the truth, that truth hurts, man. You know, that people don't like to be staring in the face of truth. So, you know, I say things like any great comic should that's based in truth, and it ruffles feathers, man.
You actually tried to bring Paul Mooney onto Mad TV?
Yeah.
What happened with that?
Paul was Paul, and he shot himself in the foot.
What does that mean?
You know, I talked about it on my Hollywood Look I'm Smiling Showtime special. Paul's a genius, and Paul will tell you he's a genius. There's not much humility in Paul. and Hollywood don't like cocky motherfuckers, period. But cocky and a nigga, it's too much. So, you know, I brought Paul in, and Paul did the interview, and afterwards I was excited, hoping he would be a part of the show. And
So
I'm like,
was he supposed to be a writer, or was he supposed to be on camera?
Writer.
Okay.
And I said, Paul, what happened? Homie, they're not gonna hire me. I'm too real. I'm too real. They asked me if I saw the show. I said, I saw it. All of you have stolen from me. All of you. In Living Color, SNL, all of you. First you stole niggas, then you stole my material. I invented comedy. I invented it. So he didn't get that job. But that's Paul, man.
You guys are friends?
You know, friends in the sense that when we see each other, there's a mutual respect and a hello, but not like we hang out.
Did you see that one clip where I guess a comedian tried to roast him with the gay rumors, and he came back
On stage?
Yeah.
No, I'll look it up.
We'll look it up. But there's always been the gay rumors about Paul Mooney.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, I said after I did the bit in my special, I said, "Is that nigga gay?" So, yeah, I heard it. You know what? He seems like he has some sugary moves. You know, and of course people will say, well, you know, he's got 2 sons, and we know that don't mean shit. And I know he dated Lori Petty for a little while. He might be, you know, I don't know. But if he is, God bless him.
I mean, do you think there'll ever be a major openly gay black comic? Because has there been one already?
Yeah, Wanda Sykes.
Male. Openly gay male black comic.
I'm sure there is. I probably can't.
Openly.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
let's take a look.
There will be. There will be if there isn't. If there isn't, there will be.
Why do you think there hasn't been already?
I don't know. I mean, I know there are black comics out there that are gay, but I on a famous, huge level, I don't know. But there will be.
Yeah?
Yeah, man.
They'll do jokes about sucking dick and that type of thing, taking an ass.
Yeah. I don't know that their audience will be mainstream heterosexuals. I mean, listen, man, I do bits where I reference the idea of sucking dick. And black people, we're very homophobic. Especially black men. We hold on to our sexuality tight. And sometimes it's almost like no matter how funny your joke is, the minute you even play in that area, you could feel black men in the crowd with that, all right, nigga, where this going? Come on, man, with that shit.
Like, have to leave right now?
Come on, man, what you talking about? You know, we don't.
I didn't pay for this bullshit.
Yeah, I do a bit about words. And I talk about how, you know, again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I basically say every man in the room at one point or another has either sarcastically or angrily told his boy to suck his dick. And I'm immediately black, what you mean? Not me. And then when I give the example and do the joke, you totally get it. You go, come on, man, you know that's true. You know, but black dudes, we like that.
Do you know who Chiali is?
Chiali.
Chiali was a rapper. He was a kid rapper.
Yes.
Do you know the story with Chiali?
No.
Chiali killed his baby mother's brother. And then went on the run, was on America's Most Wanted, got caught, did I think 12 years in prison. He came out. We did the first interview with him when he came out.
Right.
But the interesting part, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, was that what triggered the actual murder was he got into an argument with his baby mother's brother, and the dude told him to suck his dick. And that, like on a jail level, is considered so insulting that he pulled out a gun and killed him.
Right.
I've never quite understood this level of insult, like telling a dude to suck your dick. I would never even like who says shit like this?
Suck my dick?
Yeah.
It's just the way you say it. It's the way you say it. I could be talking to you right now. If you say something I don't like, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Whatever. Nigga, suck my dick. Fuck out of here. You know what I mean? That don't mean.
Seems a bit awkward.
In my bit, I go, that saying that is different from, man, you crazy as a motherfucker. Suck my dick.
I mean, what do you even say? Because I guess I mean, I've spoken to jail dudes about this, and I guess it's like, you know, that's the most demeaning thing I guess you could have another man do.
Listen,
is sucking your dick.
The stupidity of motherfuckers in jail. First of all, and I tell people, man, I could never go to jail because I love pussy too much.
Right.
I am a fan of that twat.
Right.
And why would I put myself in a place where the one thing I love the most
isn't there?
I'm denied.
Right.
So it blows my mind that guys commit crime. Like, before you commit this crime, you don't say to yourself, if I get caught, I ain't gonna be able to get no pussy
at all
for a long time.
Years.
And you still go through with that? Maybe you was meant to suck a dick. Because I'm telling you, I love pussy too much to do any. I've been to jail a couple times, but like for hours.
Yeah, me
like
too.
for 3-4 hours.
Yeah, I did a
and
weekend
I'm
once.
telling you, man, you get real religious quick. I'm talking to God like, nigga, click over. I am on the other line. You got to get me out of here. I don't know how dudes do it, man.
I feel you. One of the things that we've discussed before on VladTV with a few people, you know, with Lord Jabbar, I think with Judge Joe Brown,
right.
With John Amos, was how they feel how society tries to feminize black men, especially certain types of black men, to make them more palatable,
you know, I hear
to white people
I hear
by putting them in dresses and
you know, it's
everything
funny.
else
I
like
hear
that.
argument, and I never got that, because to me, that's always just been a comedy thing. That's like comedy 101. That's like one of the oldest tricks of comedy trade is men in drag. I never got that, and I know that's what they say, but I never saw that like that. You know, Martin as Big Mama is hilarious. Eddie Murphy as Mama and Grandmama Clump is hilarious. I never looked at Eddie and went, oh, they're trying to, you know, feminize him and make him come off weak and not like a strong black man. I went, funny as a motherfucker. The grandma, had a chain hanging from the delivery, the voice, the performance. I never got that, man. Flip Wilson as Geraldine. I never got that. I don't see what they see in regards to that. I just see funny shit.
I see what you're saying with it. You know, there's different, you know, points of view. I mean, do you feel that, for example, white America is scared of someone that looks like you?
You know, it's
big,
funny.
Black guy, you know,
right,
intimidating looking, and if you throw a dress on you, they're a little okay, you know, a little more okay with it.
You know,
would you wear a dress in a movie?
If the comedy is right, yeah. If the comedy is right, absolutely. I gotta say to white America, bravo. You guys have pulled off the world's greatest Jedi mind trick on society. Yeah. Because this notion that black men are to be feared and black men and black people are scary is hilarious to me. Because historically speaking, white people, you guys have been the most dangerous motherfuckers on the planet. You wiped out the Indians. You kidnapped niggas. You oppressed us for 400 years. We get beat by the judicial system. We get beat and killed by the cops. Cam Newton is a thug, but yet you've seen videos of him giving shoes and things away to people in wheelchairs. And he's got a great smile, the most least non-threatening dude ever. When it comes to that stigma, that black people are to be feared, that is the biggest hypocrisy on the planet. Historically, y'all have been the most dangerous motherfuckers on the planet. Black people ain't never hung nobody from trees, ain't never shot nobody with water hoses, ain't never sick dogs on them, ain't never don't screw white people through the judicial system, ain't never raped, murdered, and pillaged. Come on, man.
Do you think that there is a certain fear that when a black man has a child with a white woman, the baby is considered black, is no longer considered white? So there's this kind of inherent fear by certain types of white people of black men having sex with their white women?
I don't care how mixed you are. If you look like a nigga at some point in your life, the police and society will remind you. So, you know, you can be as mixed as you want to be.
Right.
You know, at some point, look, Barack Obama is mixed.
Yep.
But we've seen so many different negative, demeaning, horrible things about him, you know, on social media. You know, pictures of him with bones in his nose and plates in his lips, you know, and being called a terrorist and, you know, a Muslim and all these things that he isn't. And he's been one of the most disrespected presidents this country has ever seen. And why is that? Not because of the color of his skin?
I mean, no one refers to him as the first mixed president or the first biracial president.
No, and a lot of people...
He always, and technically, he is only half black. He is just as white as he is black.
Well, the black side shows more than the white side.
Okay.
Which is to say that gene might be stronger.
Right, in his particular case. But technically, no matter what it looks like, he is just as white as he is black.
Yes, from a theoretical standpoint.
Well, from a scientific standpoint.
Well, if you take, you know, which is stronger, white cream or black coffee?
I mean,
you mix the white with the black, it still is brown.
I understand that, and I think that's because...
Well, I'll tell you what, if he is just as white as he is black, that's not showing by their treatment of him.
Okay.
They refer to him as Obama and not Mr. President. That's disrespectful.
I'll tell you an interesting example, because I didn't really understand the racism of this country until I started to travel outside the country, because I just assumed that certain things are just inherent in humans, but then once you go to other places, you realize, nah, U.S. has their own little brand of bullshit that they pushed on us. So I remember I was in Brazil one year with a friend of mine who's mixed. He's half Russian, half black. And we were talking to one of the Brazilian girls, and she said, "You're not black, you're Moreno." Like in Brazil, they have a term for people who are biracial. They don't just toss them in with everything that's not chalk white. You see what I'm saying?
So what does that tell you? That tells you that across the world, niggas catch hell. We got our own lane no matter what.
Well,
in Europe, during soccer matches, there were reports of white dudes throwing bananas on the field.
I've heard of this.
In Australia, they refer to Aborigines as some derogatory term. I forget what the term is, but there's a special term for Aborigines because they are the darker Australians. So niggas been catching hell on this planet no matter where you go. Is it to the degree of the United States? Is it as historical as the United States? No.
Well, because the United States had a history of slavery that most places in the world did not have.
Yes. Yeah.
Just point blank, period.
Yeah. And again, because the United States has been so influential to the rest of the world. Like the United States is like the television that the rest of the world watches and has often gotten their cues from. What's hip, what's trendy, what to do, what not to do, fashion sense, musically. Everybody's taking their cue from us, which is why the power of television and movies is a big deal. Bill Cosby tried to buy NBC. They didn't sell it. Not because he couldn't afford it, because they're not going to give him that kind of power. Power, the ability to change people's perceptions and ideas of you based on what they see. There's a lot of people in other parts of the world who don't like niggas, not because they've never met niggas and have a reason not to like them, because they saw in a movie, niggas are dangerous. Niggas are thugs. They see on TV how we're depicted. So that's their perception of us.
I don't know if I believe the Bill Cosby NBC story. Because at the end of the day, once you start getting to very high economic levels, people aren't really worried about the race when someone got the money. You see what I'm saying?
Money is power, isn't it?
Yeah, money's power. You know, for example, Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog, which was like, white people love the Beatles. It's one of the biggest, white musical,
but
groups of all time.
You talking about one thing, the Beatles.
Okay.
If you run a television network, you have the power to put on that network whatever you want.
Okay.
Dramas, comedies, specials, variety specials,
Yeah, I mean,
late night talk shows. And not saying that Bill Cosby would, but if he would have bought NBC and turned it into BET, now, and as powerful as BET has been, it ain't NBC. That's a local. I mean, you know, that's a television network that reaches the masses.
Right. BET is
That's
also
a major cable network.
BET is owned by Viacom, which is white owned as well.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's white owned, but
Yeah.
the programming was still black.
yes.
99.9% of what you saw in there was black.
What did you think about Stacy Dash saying there shouldn't be a BET?
Again, man, Trinidad James, Fetty Wap, and 2 Chainz. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Here's another gem. I hear white people say, well, what if we had WET? What if we had white entertainment television celebrating whiteness? Black people, you guys would be screaming bloody racism. Well, you do. It's called all the other channels.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand why white people feel, when did we become even? Like they think that black people play the race card just to play it. There's some truth in this. And treat it like the Bill Cosby thing. There's too many of us screaming it for us to be making this up. Like, I love white people. I don't want this to come off like I don't like white folks. I do. But when it comes to race, again, man, y'all can be naive, dismissive, arrogant, and insensitive. Listen to what black people are saying. Really try to understand our plight. And if you have an ounce of humanity in your soul and in your heart, you'll get it. I really believe you'll get it.
Did you see the 2016 Oscar picture?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it had The Weeknd was the only black person
Right.
in the photo.
Right.
Chris Rock, I guess, didn't show up to the photo.
Right.
And there may have been a few other black people that were nominated that just decided not to show up.
Right.
What's your take on the whole Oscar so white thing?
Business as usual.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know, again, that's why I'm saying it's too many examples and too many of us screaming for us to be making this up. Black Lives Matter, the Cam Newton controversy, Oscar so white. There's always something. There's got to be some validity to this. There's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, I interviewed Russell Simmons recently, and he brought up a very interesting point that I'm not aware of because I'm not really in the movie industry. I'm really more on the music side of things. But what he pointed out, which I never knew, was that
the problem is that there's nobody black pushing buttons nowhere. Nowhere, in charge of nothing. Forget the Oscars.
That's interesting because the
Interesting. Think about it.
The president of the Academy is an African American woman.
Yeah, all right. President of the Academy, the producer of the show,
right?
Chris
But not,
Rock, all
but
that's
not
all
the
fine.
actual
Fuck the Academy.
studio heads.
It's a lot. The conversation is who's pressing the buttons. Nobody black. Period. No president, no studio is black. No president, no TV show company is black. No vice president, nobody of any significance at all.
So even
in the agency business,
even at Netflix,
is black. Nobody.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
The black agent, Charles King, was the biggest black agent. He was the black agent. And he was the black agent, without dissing him, he knew that they'd reach around him when it came to his big black clients. And he was agents of record, but the boss made the deals, with his big black clients. Nobody black in charge of nothing at no agency.
Do you think that's by accident? That there's not a single one? Do you think that's an accident? This showbiz thing is a fraternity, man. And I, when I first got into it, like anybody, when you first get into anything that you don't know about, there's a certain level of naivete. And I thought you just go to Hollywood and you throw your thing down and voila, the rest is history.
Okay.
Man, this shit is a fraternity, man. It's like high school. Everybody don't get to sit at the cool kids table.
Right.
Sometimes the goth kids got to sit with the goth kids. The nerds sit with the nerds.
Right.
The jocks with the jocks.
Okay.
The preps with the preps. It's when they use that term A-list. So-and-so is not A-list. what a way to categorize who you are. You B-list. You go sit with them. You not worthy. That's some high school shit.
Pretty
That's
much.
some immature high school shit. But it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, to say that you're A-list.
What does A-list have to do with your talent?
Okay.
You could be C-list and be the most talented motherfucker in the room. Everybody doesn't get the opportunity. That's like, when you talk about baseball, some of the most talented guys to ever play were in the Negro leagues. Mm-hmm. They weren't in major leagues.
Right.
So that would be them being considered, oh, you in the D list, you in the C list. They can't say they didn't have, their talent wasn't just as good as some of the guys in the major leagues. They just weren't given the opportunity because there's such a smug nose in the air, who are you attitude about this shit.
I mean, do you think though in today's day and age with social media and YouTube that you don't really need the opportunities from the gatekeepers anymore? You could do your own thing. I mean, you have, for example, like right now, VladTV has over 1 million subscribers. I put out whatever I feel like putting out. There's no one that could greenlight me. No one told me to interview Aries Spears. This was my own idea. I'm going to put it out. You're going to get over 1 million people going to watch this, guaranteed. Once we put out all the different parts, over 1 million people watch this. No one's greenlighting it. All the revenue goes back to VladTV, and we repeat the cycle. And we're not worried about trying to get cosigns, because before I did VladTV, I did documentary films and such. And I remember having to work with movie companies and having them have to green light shit and put the money up and that type of bullshit. And I just said, that's not for me. So why are people so worried about getting that cosign, getting that quick check as opposed to actually working for it?
No, I don't think that they're opposed to. There are some people that want the flash fame. They don't want to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, funny is money and hard work. All of that matters at the end of the day. I look at some of the guys who become successful from Vine. 6 seconds. Can I be funny in 6 seconds? I'm sure if I really put my effort in, but I've come off of 8 years on Mad TV, a sketch comedy show where, we did major production stuff, wardrobe, music, ensemble cast. So I'm used to that world. So it's hard for me to just sit back and go, okay, quickly do something in 6 seconds. And while there are guys out there who certainly have made a name for themselves, like a King Bach, and hats off because he's a funny dude. I think in terms of longevity, when you take someone out of that and you go, okay, now be funny for 8 minutes. Now be funny for 30 minutes. That presents its own challenge.
Okay.
So being funny in 6 seconds is cool. Putting up whatever you can put up on YouTube to get a little attention is cool. But for the long haul, can you do more than that? And I think sometimes people go, well, with YouTube and Vine and certain outlets, we don't need the major networks. We don't need the co-signers. We don't need that. You may not, but that's a lot tougher road. I mean, again, that's like comparing the NBA to the CBA. At some point, you want to play for the majors. You want the big leagues. And the studios and the networks, those are the big leagues. Not saying you can't get through the cracks and make it because of a YouTube or a Vine, but it's just much harder. It's much harder.
It's much harder, but once you achieve it, it's so much more satisfying.
Is it?
I mean, as someone who owns their own platform, it really is. Because let me tell you, I worked on 3, quote unquote films. I did 2 documentaries and I did an episode of American Gangster. I had a $250,000 budget. For the episode, I had, so I had all the best equipment and the editors, and I produced this documentary called Kiss and Tell, which was about Corinne Steffens, $350,000 budget. I can tell you, out of all those films, I have not seen a single royalty check.
Right.
You know, I busted my ass for like 3 to 6 months, working every day, doing everything, and then, you know, years later, it's like I'm being told they haven't recouped yet.
Hey man,
You feel me on this?
My last stand-up special, I've been told that too.
You see what I'm saying?
Which makes I don't want to take you off your point, but it makes no sense to me how these people, you're in the business of making money.
Yeah.
So you guys aren't producing specials just to be doing them. You want a return.
Exactly.
So they give you upfront money, which kind of like back in the day, of the Motown years or the record industry, they buy you a Cadillac and a house.
Right, and it's leased.
That's the illusion.
Right.
You got a Cadillac and a house and you come from poverty, you should be happy. Not knowing that the real worth is not in the car or the house, it's in owning your masters and seeing the money from your sales, getting a huge percentage. So, I've done a stand-up special and I've been told to this day, yeah, we haven't recouped enough to give you anything yet.
Exactly.
And if you try and fight it with lawyers, you'll probably end up spending more money on lawyers than you will find it, then it'll be worth it to see if you actually have something to recoup.
Exactly. And this is why I own all my own masters. And I have 10,000 videos on my channel, which will keep making money after I'm dead.
But let me ask you, in a perfect world, truthfully, if you could still do everything you're doing now in terms of control, but do it on a Spielberg level, you know, and this means maybe having some co-signers or a major whomever, you'd say no to that?
If I knew that I had ownership and I had real residuals and I wouldn't have to deal with a bunch of fuck shit, you know, I've never been against collaborating with people, but I've noticed that when it's time to collaborate with people that are richer than you, you will almost always take the short end of the stick. That's what I have found.
Right.
So it took roughly 10 years to get to this point.
Right.
But you know, for example, you've seen that Eddie Griffin interview that I did. Howard Stern had it on his show and talked about it for 10 minutes. It was on Fox, it was on NBC, it was on Daily Mail. You know, that was a very important piece of footage that I was responsible for, that I'm gonna own for the rest of my life. Right. Whereas if I was working for NBC, I would have gotten a check for that and they would have owned that, you know, forever.
Yeah. I mean, there is a way to get there. And there is a way to achieve both. And of course, that is the biggest challenge of them all, is trying to get to that place.
Because if you think about it, you know, Spielberg didn't keep working for other people.
Right.
He went and started DreamWorks.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. There's a way to achieve that. But the higher the goal, the bigger the hurdle.
Well, I mean, do you want the fame or do you want the money? For me, I've always wanted the money. I don't really care, you know, and a lot of times it's the trade-off between the fame and the money. We'll make you famous, but you're not going to be rich. Or you're not going to be as rich as we're going to be.
I don't think you'll ever be as rich as they're going to be. But again, I think there's a way to achieve both. You know, Denzel is pretty rich.
Yeah.
And he's pretty famous.
Yeah.
And he's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Will he ever be as rich and as powerful as the studio? No. He's in a pretty damn good place.
But Denzel has always been fine with just acting in other people's movies. He's never went out and said, I'm going to start my own company and start doing my own movies.
But that's his choice.
That's his choice.
He certainly can do that if he wanted to.
If he wanted to, but this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think you could really compare the two because he never tried to do that type of thing.
But how many have? I mean,
Oprah.
Okay, Oprah with the TV network.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know enough about that to really speak on that, but I would wonder, like the OWN network, that's almost like buried amongst a million other cable channels. Why isn't that more out in the public? Why isn't that more in your face like her show was on a major network?
I mean, maybe because the content they put out,
but it's Oprah,
may not be as good as it should be.
But it's Oprah. That's the female Jesus.
Look at Netflix. Someone went and started Netflix.
Yeah.
And now Netflix is winning all the Emmys and everything else like that. I mean, if you think about some of the best shows on television, Netflix has to be in that conversation. Orange is the New Black.
Right.
You know, Narcos. Have you seen that? Incredible big budget films. You know, in fact, Netflix, I looked this up, accounts for 35% of all the internet traffic on the planet,
Right.
including porn. Like if you add up all the porn and all the other shit, all the YouTube, the whatever, Netflix accounts for a third.
Well, listen, I've always wondered why you look at some of the most prominent and successful black entertainers in the industry, whether it's acting, singing, any form of entertainment, sports, and I go, how come Oprah and Michael Jordan and Denzel, and I could name 5 or 6 others, don't all sit down and have this power meeting and go, let's all put in a piece of our money and create our own Warner Brothers, our own TV network? I would love to hear the answer to that question, because certainly with all that money, I would think that would be achievable. But I also think, to some degree, I don't know, and some people might think I'm going too deep here, but or might say it's ridiculous, but I think, again, when you talk about the effects of racism and slavery, there's always been this mentality within the black community of crabs in a barrel. You know, we're not the quickest race to look out for one another. As soon as one of us can get to the top, it's like, all right, made it. See you niggas, good luck. Whereas, you know, it seems like white boys in this business look out for each other all the time. How many movies are we gonna see where Nick Swanson and Rob Schneider are in an Adam Sandler movie?
Right.
He looks out for his boys.
Right.
And I wish more black entertainers would go, hey man, I got this movie I'm doing. I got you. Come with me. Let's do this. Well, so I think it'd be nice to know that if we took our resources and our power and our money and our fame, why we can't create that opportunity? Why we can't create that door for ourselves? We seem to be content on making it big, taking what we're given and calling it a day.
Stunting on everyone who hasn't made it. I'll tell you a very, very interesting conversation I had a little while back with Rip Hamilton, who has, you know, he played with Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I know.
You know, he has I think 2 rings. He said in the whole time that he was in the NBA, you know, you take a look at the NBA locker room, and, you know, based on whatever the rules are in the NBA that year, you're looking at a combined yearly income of like $100 million or so in that locker room, right? If you look at a typical NBA team, you know, you look at, for example, the Lakers, you know, granted Kobe's making more than everybody, but there's all types of everyone there is a millionaire, probably a multimillionaire.
Right.
He said the whole time he's been in the NBA, he does not remember a single conversation in the locker room about how the fellow players are investing their money or starting new businesses. There's conversations about what kind of car they got, about what girl they're messing with, about what kind of jewelry they got, or you know, a house that they got. But and if you look at, you know, professional sports in general, it could be over in the blink of an eye. One bad injury and that's it. It's over. Right. You know, the money you make, and unless you're lucky enough to become a sportscaster or whatever else, you know, once you're out of the league, that money completely stops. It's not like other fields.
Right.
But he said at no point does he remember talks about how people are investing not stocks, not businesses, not anything.
Right.
And that really kind of fucked me up, because it's like I'm always talking to people around me about that.
Right.
Like I'm always thinking about how I could keep this, you know, this money going and reinvesting and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that we culturally have been groomed that way. You know, again, we come from, a lot of us come from poverty, and we've never had anything to begin with. So once you get it, it's like you feel like you've made it. I got it. I've achieved. I ain't got to do nothing else. I got it. I got the house. I got the car. I got the jewelry. I got it. And we don't think beyond getting it. Like, getting it is one thing. Keeping it is something else. And I just don't think we're groomed that way.
Yeah, keeping it is something else, because I've definitely gotten it and lost it. And it took a long time to get it back. Right. There was an interesting documentary I just saw on Netflix. It was about Dean Kamen. Dean Kamen was the inventor of the Segway. You you know, that thing that rides around the two wheels. And he's, not only did he invent the Segway, but he invented a whole bunch of other shit. Like he's worth about $500 million.
Right.
You know, he invented a purified drinking water system where you could literally piss on one side and then have pure drinking water come out on the other, which he got into all types of poor countries. He invented like the Coca-Cola freestyle thing that, you could mix up the flavors. He invented that for Coca-Cola. And he said something very interesting, which really kind of got me thinking. He said that he would go around talking to kids and he would ask them, name a famous scientist. He said every so often they might name Albert Einstein, but in general, they can't name any.
Ask them to name an athlete, they can all day.
You ask them, if they know who LeBron is, and 100% of them will know. And he said, let's just take a step back from this situation. Everything around you is, the reason why your people are living to the age that they are is because of scientists, because of medicine. Like I think about all the times I've gotten sick over the course of my life and I took some antibiotics and they fixed it up. And if that wasn't around, I'd be dead right now. Electricity, the cell phone, flight, the car, the wheel, physics, space travel. It just goes on and on and on. Life support, open heart surgery. But yet, a guy that could put a ball into a hole with a slightly better percentage than his co-workers is worshipped like a god.
Because that's sexy. It's sexy.
Just
seeing a muscular cut nigga with a six-pack jump in the air and make an arena full of people go ooh and ah is sexy. No chick wants to bang the dude that invented the toaster. You know what I'm saying? And we need the toaster.
Right, I like
you
toast.
Need that hot bread with butter on it early in the morning to give you your carbs and your energy to complete your day.
I mean, think about just the effect of social media. Like, think about, and this is like me and Scarface got into a conversation about this. I say that what's happening right now with the racism, the police brutality, right now, I don't think is any different than it was 10 years ago. I think the only difference is that right now everyone's got a video camera on them and you got social media. So now you get to see it, because before you only had a couple media outlets and they would decide what it is they put up. Now the people decide what they want to see.
I'm for that.
Someone invented that.
And they're gazillionaires.
Someone put that together.
Right.
And yet a guy that could put a ball into a hole who really brings nothing to society. If you really just take a step back, if you think about like the aliens finding, human civilization a billion years from now and says, wow, this guy with the ball really was a big deal during this time.
The guy with the ball, when the game is over, his after party at the local nightclub is going to be jumping. The nigga that invented, some special lights, the cheese and crackers at his house gonna be stale. It just is. I think people are into, the obvious. The people that create things that change everyday life and that have an impact on us, and those guys that are worth 10 gazillions or hundreds of gazillions of dollars. Those guys exist in the shadows. It's not obvious.
I mean, the Nobel Prize winners are not celebrated in my world. At all. Do you know any? Who won the Nobel Prize?
One.
See what I'm saying?
One.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's really kind of just on a societal level.
Yeah.
And you have kids. Just think about that. Your kids are growing up in the era that the athletes completely overshadow the people that are actually improving the world.
The great Patrice O'Neal, one who I said is on one of my comedy Mount Rushmore. He put it in perspective, man. It's intoxicating to sit at the Garden on the floor where you could trip the players with your feet and people are yelling out of the crowd, hey, yo, Tracy Morgan, what's up, baby? It's intoxicating. I've done some things on that level and it fuck you up. You know what I mean? Because the attention, the fact that everybody wants it, it's glamorized. It's a drug, man. It is a drug. Being famous, and I'm not major famous. I'm not Jay-Z level, Kevin Hart level, but I'm known. And there have been things that have happened to me and places I've gone and I just go, damn, really? Shit. Like it's mind blowing. I was in Tampa, Florida this past weekend, and the guy that ran the restaurant saw me on the local morning news, and I went in that afternoon to give my lunch, expecting to pay for it. He went, dude, on the house. I ate there every night for 3 nights, and I tried to pay every time. He wouldn't let me. There are places out here where I'll go, and people will go, yo, man, big fan, love you, on the house. And that gets intoxicating, man. You know what I mean?
See, I've always been kind of the opposite. I've always stayed behind the camera because I actually like to keep my private life private. You know, I like, if I was in front of the camera all the time, I'd have to walk around with security everywhere. I already have to do it at hip hop events.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would have to just basically walk around with it everywhere. And, you know, I could go to a hip hop event and get that thing that you're talking about, have everyone want to take pictures with me, and everyone in the building knows who I am, and they give me my props, but then I could turn it off and then just go shopping by myself without being bothered, because I don't know, I've always just been more focused on the business than the fame part. So, you know, to each his own. Are you familiar with Key Peele?
Yeah.
What's your take on Key Peele?
Funny dudes, man.
I interviewed Russell Simmons, and he said something interesting about Key Peele. And actually, what's funny is that I actually ran into one of the guys at the airport, like right afterwards. You know, we had a conversation about it. And what Russell said was that
Hollywood didn't pick that nigga. They didn't pick none of them. They picked Key Peele. And again, I want to make this clear. I said this 10 times. I promise you, I don't care if you make it a headline. I like Key Peele. I think they're very funny. I love the trailer for the movie. I wonder if young white kids will go see it, because ain't nobody black necessarily excited to see it. Although the trailer looks good, anybody should go see it. I'm gonna go see their movie. Just the trailer looks exciting. But, you know, it's like most black people, no matter how middle class they might be, their roots is so deep in the hood that culturally they still have cultural connection. And like, they don't switch on and off and say, be black now, you know, that they don't do that. But that's okay, and there is a group of black people like that, but not many. I don't care where you came from. You got cousins and family and all that, and you got culture that travels with you. So they are just very funny Americans who happen to be black, and we need them too. But I don't want it to be them to the exclusion of everything else. Comedy Central is a very white network. It's so white, you put black shit on it that's really good, it might even travel.
Well, again, really, Dave Chappelle wasn't either. But I gotta be careful here. You know, before I say this, I have this perception about me that people have of me, that I gotta be careful how I say this, because it's gonna come off like I'm bitter and I'm angry and I'm hating, but I'm not. There's a certain authenticity to Dave that real niggas have. So meaning, even if you didn't come up the traditional way, and like I said, the Cedric the Entertainers of the world, Steve Harvey, certain guys through that Def Jam, Comic View era, the black community they've been ingrained with the black community since the beginning. And they've never gotten away with that, gotten away from that. Maybe now they're starting to, because the success and the crossover. One of my favorite, funniest commercials is with Cedric the Entertainer, and he talks about diabetes. And you can hear him pronouncing words, doing ordinary tasks. Ced is a street nigga from St. Louis, a ghetto street nigga from St. Louis. But he's at that level now where he ain't gonna talk like a street nigga from St. Louis. He's gonna say ordinary tasks. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So Dave even though Dave didn't, in that traditional sense, there's an authenticity to Dave that when black people look at him, they go, we can see it, we can smell it. He a real nigga. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Perfect example of this is Will Smith. Will is the perfect Negro in that way, in the sense that he's black enough to where if he's around all niggas in the hood, you go, I believe it. He is one of us. But he's crossover enough to make white people feel comfortable. DMX ain't that nigga.
Right.
DMX is 1 year. Dog, where the niggas at? Where the weed? He's with the niggas. You ain't gonna see DMX at a ball, a banquet ball. So to answer, to get back to Key and Peele, I just think, look, I work with them on Mad.
Mm-hmm.
Good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Good heart. Good guys. Give you the shirt off their back. Is it ironic? Is it a coincidence that most of their friends are white and got white wives? They like white women? I mean,
I don't know him like that.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to be careful here because I don't want this to come off the wrong way, even though it probably already has. If you hang around them, their new movie, they got a new movie coming out, and it's genius what they're doing.
Keanu.
They playing that up. They playing up two black dudes who are black, but are so white internally that they're uncomfortable in that black surrounding. And it's a brilliant move because they're really like that. That's what I'm saying. If they walked into a room full of niggas, real niggas would go, something don't smell right. You know what I'm saying? I could. And I've always kind of been proud of that. I kind of have that Will Smith thing a little bit where I can hang around white folks without seeming like I'm putting on a front and just be me. And I don't make white people feel uncomfortable. But I can also go in the hood and be with the niggas and they go, yeah, nigga one of us. And you know, it's a special gene you have to have, man. It's like being an X-Men. You gotta have that's a special power, man. You know, and Key and Peele, they're good dudes. But yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I when I would watch their show, the funniest shit to me, and I think they do this in the movie, is whenever they would portray black characters on Key and Peele, it felt like black people in whiteface doing black people. Yeah, man. Yeah, bro. I know what it is. It was so much emphasis on the, yeah, we black, man. And real niggas are cooler than that. Real niggas, when we talk, we be, oh no, yeah, man, no doubt. All right. Hey, cuz. Hey, for real though, homie. Nigga, all right there already. And there's a natural
flow,
smooth flow to it where it just is. Versus, yeah, I'm black, man. Well, niggas don't act like that.
I could tell you that my first, I remember hanging out with a black female friend of mine, and Key and Peele were actually advertising, you know, when they first got their sketch comedy show on, I think, Comedy Central, and they started advertising on VladTV. So we went to go check out some clips, and the first clip was a slavery clip, where they were both slaves, and they were kind of like praising the slave masters for choosing certain types of slaves, and it was like she looked at this and goes like, "Well, fuck these guys," and she turned it off.
I haven't seen the clip, so I can't speak on it. I know just by the nature of the subject, to say someone's offended. You know what I'm saying? It's slavery. It's sensitive. People are gonna be offended. Funny as money. If I saw the clip and was able to go, dude, that's funny. If it's funny, it's funny. I can't say shit on it just because it was a slave joke. You know what I mean? Because there's been some great slave jokes. Dave Chappelle, when he did the Roots outtakes, hilarious. There's someone still might be offended because he's talking about slavery. So I won't knock it because of the subject. I'm gonna knock it whether it's funny or not.
Well, I mean, the Dave Chappelle black, blind, white supremacist, I think was one of the most brilliant things ever put together. Like,
genius.
He's black and he's a white supremacist because he went to a blind school and no one told him he was black. They told him he was white because he was the only white kid.
When at the end, when the commentator says he divorced his wife because he found out she was a nigga lover, hilarious, man.
This is the clip right here. We just watched the Key and Peele slavery sketch. What's your take on it?
You know what my problem with the sketch is? There's no comeuppance for the slave. you got two dudes who are basically pissed that they're not being sold into slavery and don't have white masters and be forced to work under the crack of the whip. They're upset about that. Which again, it shouldn't really be about the subject matter, but if you're going to tackle something that edgy and that risque, you kind of want to root for the slave. And you talking about two niggas that are happy to be sold into the worst conditions, or upset because they're not being sold into the worst conditions imaginable. When you looked at Dave's outtakes on the Roots,
yeah, they shot the slave master.
They shot the slave master. And at one point, remember when the dude was whipping him, trying to get him to say his name, and he whipped him too hard, and he said, "Hey man, damn, I told you not so hard." And the dude said, "Oh, my bad, Dave." And finally he whipped him again too hard, and Dave got himself off the thing that was holding him up and went and got ready to beat the slave master up, and then went back into character, like he was hurt. It was tongue in cheek, but you saw the black dude kind of come up. You saw him win. You saw him, you know what I mean? Stick it to the man. I don't know, man. That's
Well, like I said, the black female who I was watching.
Did she tell you why she didn't like it?
She just said it was disgusting. That's what she said.
I wish she would have gave you more of a reason
she
as
said
to what she thought was disgusting. Because I think that's the part that bothers me, is that they're just so, oh, damn, I want to work. I want to be a slave. And the sketch doesn't go anywhere else. It's just that one direction. So.
I mean, there was a whole thing with Dave Chappelle leaving. And I've met Dave Chappelle. We hung out one night, you know, after his comedy show. And, you know, we've kept in contact ever since then. And, you know, I kind of leave the whole leaving the Chappelle Show thing alone with him, because I know it's a very touchy subject.
Right.
But from everything that I've heard and read, it was he left because I guess he felt that white people were laughing at him, and you know they were trying to get him to do things that he felt was demeaning. Like I guess there was a whole thing about him wearing a dress in a skit that he just refused to do, and that became a big thing.
I don't know how true what I saw on it is, but from what I read and saw, it was, you know, a lot of the black, powerful, prominent people in show business was putting pressure on him to stop making us look a certain way. You know, between some of the sketches he was doing heavily based on race, they felt he was doing us a disservice. And the pressure of, you know, hey man, you got to stop doing this became too much.
How did you feel about the Chappelle Show?
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It would have been great to see where else he could have took it.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, for example, I interviewed Charlie Murphy, and he said that at the time it got canceled, Eddie Murphy actually agreed to do a true Charlie Murphy, true Hollywood story.
Is that right?
Yeah. Do you feel that the Chappelle Show made black people look bad?
Not in any way. Not in any way. I'm a big middle finger to anybody that tries to tell me what I should and shouldn't talk about, and what's right and what's wrong. Because funny is money. And if people laugh, it's like Eddie Murphy said in Raw when he did Richard, talking about Bill Cosby. Do people laugh at what you say when you say it? Do you get paid? Well, then tell Bill I said have a coke and a smile and shut the fuck up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And people are such hypocrites in terms of what offends them doesn't offend everybody else. And everybody's going to be offended. We live in an offensive age. Mm-hmm. So I don't worry too much about people's feelings. If it's funny, man, I'm with it.
And I thought the Chappelle Show was brilliant.
Brilliant.
I mean, to this day, you could say I'm Rick James, bitch.
Right. He might not like that. You know,
who?
Dave.
Really?
I mean, yeah. Well, you know, he's a comic at heart.
I don't know
so
though.
When he goes to do stand up and he's performing in front of a packed house and motherfuckers won't shut the fuck up and they keep yelling out, "I'm Rick James, bitch," and he's trying to do new material, he ain't a fan of that.
No?
No.
But it's funny because we had a report on a robbery where one of the dudes came in disguised as Rick James. He actually had the Rick James hair and everything. And I sent him a link. I said, I blame you for this. And he just LOL'd me back. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's funny because like I saw Charlie Murphy, who we've interviewed before, and he invited me to the stand-up. And he was saying how, Ashley Larry was hating on him one day saying, everywhere we go, Charlie Murphy, don't you get sick of that shit? He's like, no, motherfucker. My name's been Eddie Murphy's brother for the last 30 years. Like,
hilarious. Hilarious.
And if you think about Charlie Murphy is now on tour with like Eddie Griffin and like, is it
George Lopez,
Hewley, like a bunch of, really well-known, well-respected comedians when he really was Eddie Murphy's brother for the majority of his life.
Yeah.
And now he's actually up there doing he's not at the Eddie Murphy level of comedy, of course, but he's actually, doing his thing. And like, he's got a major role in Black Jesus and all that other type of stuff. So, hey man, I think that the effects of the Chappelle Show are still felt to this day.
Yeah.
And I think after the Chappelle Show, the next thing to really take on this sort of, comedy with a social statement was the Boondocks.
Yeah. I did a couple of voiceovers for that.
Yeah, me too. I was actually a character on the Boondocks.
Yeah, okay.
One of the episodes, when Sergeant Gutter he goes to beef with when Thugnificent went to go beef with Sergeant Gutter, the Soldier Boy character, he came on VladTV to air it out.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So, yeah, man, great stuff. I mean, I feel like right now we don't have that. We don't have a show that's like funny, but says something about society at the same time.
I really was pushing hard to try to do my own sketch comedy show, and I went to HBO, I went to Showtime, and long story short, basically everybody's turned me down. But I think that has more to do with people's perception and dislike for me than it does the material. Because like I did right when all this police brutality and Black Lives Matter thing was starting to come to a head, I did a skit where I spoofed the State Farm commercials. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. But I basically, the premise of the skit was, which you can see on my YouTube channel, Aries Spears 23. I played a soul singer from the 70s and I got pulled over by the cops. So basically they were gonna fuck me up because I was black. And just when I think I'm about to get my ass whooped, I do the jingle and a Black Panther shows up with me and we got 2 guns in each hand and we blow the cops away. So to try to get someone to co-sign on that as funny or put as a show, rolling the rock uphill, man.
What do you think about the attention that the Black Panthers are getting right now because of the whole Beyonce thing?
Yay, congratulations. And the Black Panthers, from what I've been told and read a little bit, they weren't just this militant group for black people. They had white people involved too.
Yeah.
And as Malcolm X said, I think it's stupid to know that you're being attacked or attempted to be killed and you're not defending yourself. So if there wasn't any racism or police brutality, there would have been no need for the Black Panthers. So let's do the math on that. Before white America gets in an uproar about the Black Panthers' existence, let's start with the fact with why they were created to begin with.
Well, to protect the communities, and they actually use, because I grew up in the Bay, and spent a lot of time in Berkeley and Oakland, which is where the Panthers came out of, and their whole thing was they're going to protect themselves by carrying guns, which was actually legal at the time. Right. And they actually had to change the laws.
Of course, that's what I'm talking about.
After,
Black people, we get laws rewritten, baby. After the OJ fiasco, certain new laws were put into place. The Panthers, he told you. Come on, man.
Yeah, the OJ thing, it's interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine, my son. He did 7 years in prison. We were talking about the whole OJ thing. And, how OJ got 35 years, for the robbery where he was trying to get his stuff back. And he said, I know people that have been convicted for murder that didn't get 35 years.
Barack Obama mentioned it in a speech he did. There are more blacks and Latinos in prison and serving more time for the exact same crimes that white people have committed and who aren't either in prison or serving less time. So again, we keep going back to the same thing about white America's perception on race, because again, that's something else that white people will often say to me. Well, you guys, you spend more time in prison and blah, blah, blah. There are more black people in correctional facilities and blah, blah, blah. So white people can't be all that dangerous. No, you guys just get away with it or you serve less time.
Well, me and Russell Simmons, what we talked about with the Rockefeller laws that he helped to get reversed.
I mean, baking soda should not make you go to jail for 300 times more time than
Right.
the guy without baking soda.
Right, because crack and regular cocaine was having completely different sentencing for the same amount.
300 times more.
300 times more.
So you're in jail for a day for cocaine and 300
days for crack. That's insane.
So that's the average, because most people wouldn't go to jail for a little coke in some communities.
And this is why I said the power of Hollywood with movies and TV, perception. If people from another country that don't know anything about black people, have never interacted with black people, and all they know is that American television, that American entertainment, then they go, man, black people are dangerous. Black people are junkies. Black people are to be feared. And we don't have the power to change that perception, then that perception will continue to exist. And again, I love white people. I really do. But that Jedi mind trick y'all got, man. Y'all have been able to look at other races and go, niggas are dangerous. And that's what people go, niggas are dangerous. You know what I mean?
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, right. It just, and again, historically speaking, black people should be the least feared people on the planet. We are one of the most forgiving races of all races. When that white boy shot up them 9 black people in that South Carolina church,
right.
When you saw those black people commenting, those family members, they all spoke of forgiveness. We forgive you. Jesus will. Right. Black people, we go, oh, Lord, Lord, Lord. We are so forgiving as a race.
In fact, he actually, when they interviewed him after the shooting, he said that he considered not doing the shooting because the black people in that church were so nice.
Yeah.
So nice and embracing of him when he was there. And this was, I guess, like one of the oldest black churches in the country.
Right.
Yeah. Sad stuff, man.
Yeah,
but,
man.
But I guess the one, ironically positive thing to come from that absolutely horrible tragedy was that his goal was to trigger a race revolt in the U.S. when what it actually did was it actually triggered the Confederate flag to be taken down in a lot of states.
It was a great positive. But again, I think until black, white, we can find a way to really take the time. And I really, not to say that there isn't anything that black people shouldn't learn about white folks, because we can always learn from each other. But even in the school system, it's Black History Month, White History Year. We know way more about y'all than y'all do about us. And if white people can somehow stop having a I don't give a shit attitude towards us, we could get on the same page. Like white people, I know you guys love your dogs, man. You kiss them and lick them in the mouth. If you could do that to niggas, we would be in a much better place. Next time you randomly see a nigga on the street, just go, come here, nigga, and do to us what you do to your dogs. It'd be a great start. This Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter movement, let's knock this horse shit off. Because to somehow suggest that all lives matter takes precedent over Black Lives Matter is a slap in the face and a disrespect to the black mothers and fathers who have lost their sons and daughters at the hands of police brutality. Secondly, there's no need to say all lives matter. It's obvious. This goes without saying. Who the fuck is debating this? Absolutely all lives matter. But the truth is, all lives ain't being killed by the police, just us. So there's a difference.
That's how we'll end it.
Yep.